A young girl full of life and dreams stepped out one evening for a Tinder date in Auckland. She was excited to meet someone new, share drinks, and maybe spark a fleeting connection. She never returned. What happened to her that night would shock a nation and change lives forever. This is the story of Grace Millane. Grace Emmie Rose Millane was born on December 2, 1996 in Essex, England. She grew up in the town of Wickford, part of a close-knit family who described her as lively, intelligent, and compassionate. From an early age, she displayed a bright personality and an eagerness to connect with people. Grace was the youngest of 3 siblings, and her family often recalled her as someone full of kindness and curiosity, with an adventurous streak that would later define her choices in life. Grace pursued her education with focus and determination. After completing her earlier schooling in Essex, she enrolled at the University of Lincoln, where she studied advertising and marketing. In 2018, she proudly graduated with a bachelor's degree, a milestone celebrated warmly by her parents and friends. Her academic success reflected her ambition, but it was her desire to experience the wider world that shaped her next chapter. Following graduation, Grace planned a year of travel before starting her professional career. She embarked on a backpacking journey, beginning with 6 weeks in South America. During this time, she embraced new cultures and landscapes, capturing her experiences in photographs and messages sent home. On November 20, 2018, Grace arrived in New Zealand, drawn to its natural beauty and reputation as a safe destination for travelers. She explored the Upper North Island before reaching Auckland on November 30th. Her journey symbolized both independence and celebration, reflecting the joyful spirit with which she approached life's opportunities. On December 1, 2018, Grace Millane spent her last evening in Auckland, New Zealand. CCTV footage and documented movements provide a precise timeline of her activities. At approximately 9 p.m., she was recorded on Victoria Street in the Central Business District. 15 minutes later, she appeared at Sky City, a nearby entertainment complex. By 9:41 p.m., Grace was at the City Life Hotel on Queen Street, accompanied by Jesse Kempson, a man she had met through the dating application Tinder earlier that day. After meeting, they left the hotel and moved between several bars. CCTV footage documented their presence at the Mexican Cafe, followed by the Bluestone Room. During this period, both were observed socializing and consuming alcoholic beverages. The recordings show them interacting closely, including moments interpreted as friendly and consensual and sharing a kiss. Grace sent messages to friends, indicating that her date was going amazingly well, suggesting she felt safe and engaged in the evening. Throughout the night, Grace's movements were traceable via security cameras, providing a clear sequence of events. She and Kempson returned to the City Life Hotel, entering his room later that night. This marked the final verified sighting of Grace alive. All available evidence from CCTV and communications establishes the timeline and her interactions, emphasizing the ordinary social context of the evening. There are no indications in these recordings that Grace anticipated any danger. The factual records highlight the contrast between her perception of the evening and the subsequent events. On December 2, 2018, Grace Millane's 22nd birthday, her friends and family began sending messages and attempting video calls. Grace, who had been regularly communicating during her travels, did not respond. Her sudden silence immediately raised concern among her family in the United Kingdom. Several days passed without contact. On December 5th, after multiple unsuccessful attempts to reach her, Grace's parents formally reported her missing to New Zealand authorities. The hotel where she had stayed confirmed that she never returned to her room after leaving on the evening of December 1st. This absence triggered the initiation of a police inquiry. Initial statements from the New Zealand police indicated that there was no evidence of foul play, but officers began a systematic investigation to establish her movements. Officers documented her last known locations using CCTV, starting from the City Life Hotel, where she had been last seen with Jesse Kempson. Police inquiries included contacting local businesses, reviewing transportation routes, and tracing her interactions through messages and social media. The report of a missing person rapidly escalated into an urgent investigation due to Grace's age, travel history, and lack of communication. Her parents experienced growing distress from thousands of miles away, understanding that missing birthday messages were not ordinary delays, but a potential indicator of serious concern. Following Grace Millane's disappearance, the New Zealand police launched a full-scale investigation that quickly attracted public and media attention. Investigators focused on her last known movements, relying heavily on CCTV footage to reconstruct the evening of December 1, 2018. The footage contradicted early claims made by Jesse Kempson, who initially stated that he and Grace had parted ways after a brief meeting. Instead, police confirmed that the pair traveled together to Kempson's hotel, establishing a continuous timeline. Investigators examined Kempson's activities in the days following Grace's disappearance. CCTV recorded him carrying cleaning supplies and a suitcase in and out of the hotel, actions considered suspicious in context. Further inquiries traced his rental car, which had traveled to Taupō, approximately 275 kilometers from Auckland, after Grace went missing. The vehicle was recovered on December 8th, providing additional evidence of Kempson's movements. During the investigation, police reviewed digital evidence, including online searches conducted by Kempson. Some searches related to body disposal and concealment methods were noted, further intensifying suspicion. These findings prompted authorities to escalate the case from a missing person inquiry to a homicide investigation. The shift reflected accumulating evidence indicating deliberate actions rather than an unexplained disappearance. The investigation combined forensic analysis, witness statements, and digital tracking to construct a detailed account of the timeline. Police interviews and background checks were conducted on all relevant contacts from Grace's evening, ensuring comprehensive coverage. The culmination of these efforts occurred on December 9, 2018, when Grace Millane's body was discovered in the Waitākere Ranges, west of Auckland. This discovery confirmed the worst fears of her family and marked a pivotal moment in the case, transforming public concern into a formal criminal investigation with Jesse Kempson as the primary suspect. On December 8, 2018, Jesse Kempson, age 26, was arrested at the City Life Hotel in Auckland and formally charged with the murder of Grace Millane. The arrest followed days of police investigation that linked him to her disappearance and the evidence gathered from CCTV, his rental car, and digital activity. Kempson's arrest marked a turning point in the case, providing a named suspect for law enforcement and the public. Jesse Kempson was raised in the Wellington region of New Zealand. His parents separated during his childhood, and he was subsequently raised by his father and grandfather. Later in life, Kempson moved to Australia before returning to New Zealand. He held various jobs, including positions as a bartender and laborer, though he maintained limited contact with much of his family. Prior to Grace Millane's murder, Kempson had a criminal record, which included offenses such as drink driving and disorderly behavior. Court proceedings later revealed that he also had a history of violent and abusive behavior toward women, including convictions for rape and sexual assault unrelated to this case. These past offenses highlighted a pattern of criminal behavior, particularly involving sexual violence. At the time of Grace's disappearance, Kempson's identity was suppressed under New Zealand court orders, preventing local media from publishing his name. However, some international outlets did report it. The background information presented during the investigation provided context for understanding Kempson's history, without speculating on his motives. Jesse Kempson's trial commenced on November 4, 2019 at the Auckland High Court and lasted 3 weeks. The prosecution presented evidence arguing that Kempson had strangled Grace Millane following their Tinder date and then undertook calculated actions to conceal the crime. Evidence included CCTV footage tracking their movements that night, witness testimonies confirming their interactions, and forensic findings. Bruising observed on Grace's body was consistent with restraint and asphyxiation. Investigators also highlighted Kempson's digital activity, including internet searches related to body disposal, demonstrating premeditation in covering up the crime. The prosecution emphasized Kempson's behavior after Grace's death, describing it as calm and deliberate, contrasting sharply with the gravity of the situation. They argued that his actions indicated awareness and intent, supporting the case for murder rather than accidental death. The defense claimed that Grace's death resulted from a consensual sexual act that had gone wrong, framing the incident as a rough sex misadventure. This defense aimed to explain the injuries as part of an intimate encounter rather than deliberate harm. However, this argument was widely criticized as victim-blaming, placing the burden of explanation on Grace rather than focusing on the accused actions. The defense's approach also forced the family to hear detailed accounts of Grace's alleged private life, adding to their distress during the proceedings. After 3 weeks of hearings, the jury deliberated for 5 hours. On November 22, 2019, they returned a unanimous verdict, finding Jesse Kempson guilty of murder. The trial established a detailed account of the events leading to Grace's death and the actions Kempson took afterward. It provided a legal and factual determination of responsibility, ensuring the case was examined through evidence, witness testimony, and forensic analysis, rather than speculation or public conjecture. On February 21, 2020, Jesse Kempson was sentenced to life imprisonment with a minimum non-parole period of 17 years. The sentencing recognized the severity of his crime, highlighting the deliberate nature of the murder and the attempts to conceal it. The court acknowledged the profound impact on Grace Millane's family, noting the premeditated actions Kempson took, including purchasing a suitcase and cleaning supplies to cover up the crime. Following his conviction, Kempson pursued appeals challenging both the verdict and the sentence. The Court of Appeal reviewed the case and, in December 2020, dismissed his appeal, affirming the original findings of the High Court. Later, in June 2021, the Supreme Court rejected his final attempt to overturn the conviction. These legal proceedings confirmed the finality of the judicial process and reinforced the court's determination that Kempson was responsible for Grace's murder. Suppression orders that had protected Kempson's identity during initial proceedings were lifted in December 2020, allowing his name to be publicly reported in New Zealand. Subsequent reporting revealed that he had been separately convicted of 9 charges in unrelated cases, including rape, sexual violation, assault, and threats to kill. These prior convictions provided context to his history of violent and abusive behavior, demonstrating a pattern of offending unrelated to Grace Millane. The sentencing and appeals process established a clear legal conclusion to the case. Grace's murder was adjudicated with evidence-based findings, legal review, and thorough examination of both prosecution and defense arguments. The combination of life imprisonment, minimum parole period, and unsuccessful appeals ensured that justice was upheld within New Zealand's legal system, providing accountability for the crime and closure within the framework of the law. Grace Millane's murder elicited shock across New Zealand and the international community. The case attracted widespread attention due to her age, background, and the circumstances of her death. Prime Minister Jacinda Ardern issued a rare public statement addressing the Millane family, saying, "Your daughter should have been safe here, and she wasn't." This acknowledgement highlighted the national significance of the tragedy and the government's recognition of the family's loss. Public vigils and memorials were organized to honor Grace's memory. The emotional toll on Grace's parents, David and Gillian Millane, was significant. Beyond grieving the loss of their daughter, they endured scrutiny and re-exposure to the case details during court proceedings. Court testimony and media reports often required them to confront intimate and distressing aspects of Grace's final hours. Despite this, they maintained a public presence advocating for safety, remembrance, and awareness, demonstrating resilience amid widespread attention and the complex dynamics of media coverage. In the aftermath of Grace Millane's murder, her family sought to transform their grief into meaningful action. Her mother, Gillian Millane, together with her cousin Hannah, established the lovegrace charity. The organization collects handbags filled with essential toiletries and distributes them to women affected by domestic violence. By 2023, Lovegrace had donated over 15,600 handbags internationally, providing practical support and comfort to women experiencing difficult circumstances. The charity represents a direct and positive response to Grace's death, ensuring her memory contributes to helping others. Grace's case also prompted discussions about legal frameworks surrounding sexual violence. The rough sex defense, used by some perpetrators to reduce culpability, came under scrutiny. Campaigners argued that the defense re-victimized women and normalized dangerous narratives. In the United Kingdom, legal reforms in 2020 clarified that one cannot consent to serious harm or death, effectively closing avenues for this defense. These changes reflected a broader societal commitment to prioritizing victim protection and ensuring accountability in cases of violent crime. In addition to legal and charitable impacts, Grace's story has been examined in various media and academic works. Documentaries and books such as Swipe, Match, Murder, 2022, and The Lie, 2024, explored her life, travels, and the circumstances of her death. These publications aim to preserve her story accurately, highlighting both her personal achievements and the tragic events that ended her life. Through charitable initiatives, legal reforms, and continued public awareness, Grace Millane's legacy endures. Her family's dedication, combined with societal and legal attention, ensures that her story continues to raise awareness about violence against women and the importance of safety, particularly for young travelers. Grace's life, though tragically cut short, remains a catalyst for change, advocacy, and remembrance.